It's the end of January. It's getting closer and closer to spring. I can already notice the slightest stretch in the days. I'm so eager for spring to be here. I cannot wait. Although we're getting pretty good weather here. Not cold at all. So it isn't. And they say we're having a mini winter heat wave. So there you go. There's me talking about the weather, one of my favorite topics. So no more weather talk here. What I do keep reminding myself, though, is to come back to the now, back to the present moment. Look at the date on the calendar, because I always remember it's like March, April, May, and I'm like, where did January, February, and March go? Because I'm constantly wishing for the future. I used to constantly wish for the future. I couldn't wait for spring. And January was a blur. Friday was, time flies so much when we're thinking about the future. And I know it's hard because we're all so busy, but to come back to the present moment, back to our breath, and appreciate right here, right now, and focus on the little things and grateful for the simplest things, our life becomes more meaningful. Well, my life has become more meaningful. So, and I know it can get a bit overwhelming, especially as now we're back into the swing of things, back in the grinding stone, back in the rat race. I hope none of you out there feel like you're in the rat race. Do you ever feel like there isn't enough time in the day for anything at all? Especially those of you who have children and you've got a full-time job and you're trying to keep up with your social life and you have to clean the house, and it's so much. How often do you get overwhelmed? What's it all for? I find myself asking quite a lot. Yesterday was a bit of an overwhelming day. So I had to just sit down, do a bit of mindfulness, and say, why am I getting all panicky and overwhelmed? And I know I always take on more, bite off more than I can chew, but that's just who I am. And I just need to go back into the present moment and breathe. And it's normal for that to happen. So if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed out there, just take a deep breath. Pay attention to your body and your 5 senses. And breathe in on the count of 5. Hold on the count of 5. Breathe out on the count of 5 and hold on the count of 5. And just bring yourself back to the present moment. And that's all we've got, really. We don't have the future and we don't have the past. All we have is now. So, that said, this week I have part 1 of a 2-part chat with a very special guest who I met along my quantum hypnosis journey. We took Monet Coombs' quantum healing hypnosis course last year, and our group has remained quite close ever since. And it doesn't even matter where we are in the world. So I'm really grateful for that and that connection, that, exchange of ideas and learnings and growth. Before I play this chat, I just want to advise everyone who's listening that Christian, my lovely guest, speaks about her journey, which might be triggering for some of you, especially if you're feeling low, depressed, or just not in high spirits. So please refrain from listening to this if you're not feeling well, as there's mentions of suicidal ideation. So just to let you know, as your safety is very important to me, and just take care. So I hope you enjoy the lovely Christian, and I'll talk to you after.
Hello, Sarah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and have a chat. So good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love this. I love this open dialogue in this format. I love podcasting. I love the long form. I love it in comparison to social media because they're like quick excerpts that often doesn't give way to open conversation to understand each other. So that's why I love long form podcasts or
Yeah.
community writing situations, whatever they look like. I
Yeah.
guess Substack is one of those.
Yeah, it's much more enjoyable and intimate. And, you can
Mhm.
totally get to know the person much more than just posting on social media. And it's the closest to reality you're gonna get.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Mhm.
And I do love me some reality though. I love like one-on-one in person
Yeah.
or yeah. It's just so much fun to meet a stranger and talk to them. I don't think anybody does that anymore. Does anybody do that anymore? Like just talk to strangers?
Sometimes, yeah, people are quite friendly over here in Spain, and I don't know what it's like over there in
Um, and it depends on which region of the States you're and the kind of neighborhood, I suppose. And my neighborhood in LA County is a very quiet, nobody goes outside neighborhood. Not really.
yeah.
I think a lot of that part of that is the way technology has transformed our lives over the past decades too. Like I remember going outside when I was a kid, aging myself. We used to go out and ride bikes. I
Roller
don't see
skates
that
down the road.
anymore.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. So we met in our quantum healing hypnosis course, and that's where I've
Yes.
embraced myself with your loveliness. And tell me about your journey.
If it weren't for my awakening, I would have never went into quantum hypnosis. I wouldn't even like entertain it. So my awakening journey is kind of a long journey with a lot of details, but I'll try to keep it pretty short. But preceding my awakening and the awakening happening during the pandemic, I had two, and then I'm going to say trigger warning. I had two I got to this point where like I really wanted to come into like serious relationship. I wanted a long-term partner. And so when I was like set my intention out for in the dating world, I ended up dating two individuals, and one individual was a very controlling dynamic. And I tried so hard to be the person he needed me to be. And you can imagine how traumatic that can be. And towards the end of that, I experienced suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was weird because like I'm normally like super happy and cheery. But then when I get honest with myself, I do notice moments when I was younger where I would fall severely into depression. And when I think about that, I guess it's not that surprising. And then I would have a moment where I would be in this fog of depression, and then I would quickly come out because this is the phase of my life where I'm like happy, cheery person. Like this could happen. I feel like if that could happen to me at this phase of my life, it could happen to anybody. And then at that point, I was like, nope, gotta leave this relationship. This is just not for me. This is when I learned that being authentically me is so important. And then fast forward, I was the kind of like person who was like a relationship jumper. Like as much as I wasn't good at being in relationships, I didn't know how to be alone either. So next relationship started dating someone 2 months later, and it's funny how universe kind of throws in your path things that you need in stages and like levels of learning. So the next one, the first one was like everything that could go wrong in a relationship, and I learned it was so valuable. I learned so much from it. And then the next one was he fit everything I wanted in a person, but there was one thing that really was like the biggest red flag. He could never verbally say I love you back. In fact, I guess like he was everything on my list. I don't know that he was the same back, especially if he couldn't say that to me. So I said I love you early, and then 6 months, 8 months down the road, I still haven't met his friends or family. He still hasn't said I love you. And then I think at this point and I'm nursing, we were travel nursing at the time. This is during the pandemic. We were doing COVID assignments and we were in separate states. And one day I was just like, it just came out of my mouth. It's like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then he broke up with me over the phone.
Oh my
And
God.
I giggle, but it's not funny. Okay. Caveat to anybody who's listening, I'm a giggler. It's not that I mean that I think it's funny. I'm just a giggler.
Yeah.
So that day after that, I felt in that weird time warp deep depression thing. And this time I had suicidal ideation with a plan. Like I knew how it was gonna happen. And I snapped out of it. And then my inner dialogue is like, fuck love, fuck it. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. If I ever have to feel like that ever again, like I was like, once you have, especially in the nursing medicine world, once you have a plan, it's like a really big deal. Like suicidal ideation is actually super common. I had a conversation with one of my friends who became a psych nurse practitioner, and I had talked to him candidly about my experience, and he was like, actually it's very common to have it, but when in nursing and medicine, when you notice that someone has a plan, it's a really big deal. It's a part of our questionnaire when we like interview patients when it comes to mental health. They're risk factors for becoming suicidal. So that being said, once I had that experience, I was like, this isn't me. I don't identify with this feeling. And not saying that being suicidal is an identity. It's just the state of being we can be in when we don't acknowledge our emotions over a period of time, or we experience tough things or life gets really hard. I'm just generalizing it. And so I had this moment where it's like, F the world, I don't want to deal with dating. I didn't want to find love. It was like basically coming to Jesus moment about finding love outside of myself. I didn't want to have anything to do with love. So what happened next was I ended up traveling to another assignment. I'm very good about doing stuff that I want to do. At this phase of my life, this was like, how old was I? I think I was 37. I was very good at traveling alone and doing things like what I want. So what did I do? It was the winter of 2021. I traveled to Reno, Northern Nevada, which is near Lake Tahoe. So there's lots of really good snowboarding there. I love snowboarding. That was actually the blessing in disguise with that first relationship, is that if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have learned how to snowboard. And that's like the joy in my life. In fact, I'm going this weekend. Anyways, and I spent that month, or that contract, they're usually like 4 months long. I'm just going to work and snowboard on the weekends. That's all I did. Work, snowboard on the weekends. And I found, and a few things happened in this moment. It's the beginning of the year, and there's this financial person, like huge in the States. His name is Dave Ramsey, and he's into like frugality, and he has like a whole like map of how to get out of debt. And he was very valuable for me because like I did actually get out of debt at this point of my life. That's another story. But but every new year I noticed that he had this thing he liked to put out to his followers, is when you set goals for the new year, it should be well-rounded. Like he has a wheel and there's pieces of the pie. So there's topics of like goals that you set for family, intellect, like say like reading books, like knowledge base, career goals, relationship goals, and financial, etc. Like all of them. And one topic that I continue to ignore for years and years, 'cause I followed this man for years, was spirituality. And he's I forget which religion he's from. He's Adventist. I think Adventist. No, he's not Adventist. He's evangelist. I don't know. He's religious. He's Christian. So spirituality is one of those pieces of the pie, and I always ignore that. And I was like, you know what? At this point in my life, I had a plan to kill myself. I said, fuck it. I'm like at this phase where you're like nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the impetus for a lot of action or changes for people's lives is like they're at a point where the discomfort of where they were and where they were comfortable, where they didn't want to move and take risks, becomes more uncomfortable than the unknown. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go into this, but I don't know where it's gonna take me. And I did a lot of things in this time frame that I would have never done before. Like, especially with my Catholic upbringing, I had a lot of religious programming where things like certain things are scary. So I did see a psychic at the beginning of that year. Never done that before with my best friend. And she was like, oh, it's really funny because she's like a little pieces to the puzzle. My life clue, or not life. I find my life is like a bunch of clues and knowings and almost like when you play a video game or play like a mystery game and there's these clues to your life, and that's like the synchronicity and the signs and stuff like that. And the mystery just, if when you approach it that way, it makes my life look like a mystery and makes it more fun. It's like, oh, it's actually, I could engage this as life doesn't have to be scary, the scary thing that we have to know everything about. Universe almost approaches it like a game, and not to belittle like the traumatizing things about life. Like this life can be very scary.
Yeah.
Anywho, I did go to the psychic and it was really funny. I'm gonna segue into this part. Like okay, I'm in this part of my story where a lot of things happen, so this is what I'm describing though. And I went to her. I just went through this traumatic breakup, and then she's like, she works with these guidances. This is before I even knew any of this, and I was like, who is she talking to? Who are these like things without bodies she's talking to? Like, kind of creeped me out, but I was like, whatever. I'm at this point where like I don't give a fuck. I'm like taking all the risks. So like, well, what do you want? What do you want out of your life for the next few years? And I was just like, and she just said it. And this is probably like a really great example of human design, but she did say, she's like, it could be, pick any three things. It could be love, career, marriage. And she was like, I was like, those sound great. I'll take those. And then like segue into human design real quick. I'm a responder in human design, so I naturally did that, and I was like, those sound great. Like, so with human design, there are people that respond, the generator types, and we'll go into this later, and they're the way that they're meant to operate is things are presented into their lives and they're meant to respond with a yes or no based on their gut or a neutrally emotional space. So we'll get back to that. But anywho, so, and it's funny because during this time in this 4-month travel assignment, I did find love, like randomly, right? I'm like, I don't want anything to do with love,
It always
but I
happens like
found,
that.
yeah, no, it was really weird. It was like, I didn't find love per se in the traditional sense, but I did meet my person at the same time during this 4-month period of time. And then right now I'm working on career. So who knows what will happen next, because I did. I'm just saying. So that happened. And then I listened to a podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Groves. I think he was just a very big key to my journey, because I love the work when it comes to emotions, because I am first generation Filipino American. My parents didn't teach me anything about intimacy or like having a healthy relationship with emotions, just seeing it objectively, using it as a clue as to what is actually going on in your insides. So, and that's how I approach emotions now. And emotional work is a big part of like my journey and what I work with clients at times. So he helped me be very honest with myself, have a relationship with my emotions, and be honest with how have I been the common denominator in all of my experiences up until this point. And that was in the realm of relationship. But then you could put that to any topic of your life. Like, how was I the common denominator in the realm of career or what have you? You can just use that general question and slap it on anything else in your life. And for like, if you want to understand your own patterns. And then I love Barnes and Noble. It's a bookstore here in the States. I don't know if they have it anywhere else. And it's always this place I just love going to. I always have like this resonant feeling like when I was young and I loved going to the bookstore. It was something very like an affordable activity for my parents. I could read all the books I wanted to and they wouldn't have to spend any money. And so there was a Barnes and Noble. I was like, I thought all these stores were closed. There was a Barnes and Noble that was not far from me where I was staying at the time. And I remember passing by the spirituality section, and this is like the signs, the little things you notice in life. It's all there. Everything is always around you if you just take a moment to notice.
Yeah.
And I saw this beautiful book with this beautiful person on the cover, and it said, I forgot the title of the book now, but it's by Sahara Rose, and she's said something about Dharma, and I was like, that word is so interesting. What is that about? And basically it was a book on what is your purpose. And that was like kind of the impetus of her podcast. Introduced me to aliens, and then the idea of past life regression, and then this like trail of breadcrumbs that led me to through the Akashic records, understanding there are I resonate with this Palladian group of guides that this one channeler channels, and through them I met a bunch of readers that I connect with still some at times, and one of them said just randomly in one of our readings, like it was just, I know you notice weird things like in readings. I'll share a little bit on that in a second. But through this whole reading, and I did a lot of past life readings. I love past lives, but I'm out of that phase where I'm into past lives. I will revisit it one day because I have a theory on it. But she just randomly says like you should do hypnosis, like out of the blue, and I was just like, well, that's a weird thing to say. Yeah. I was like, nothing that was in my sights but it was something to notice. You notice like when something's like off the wall and you're like, huh. And it kind of stuck with me. And then and during my career journey, so okay, back to that 4-month period, I did during that contract in my travel assignment as a nurse decide I am leaving bedside nursing. I was a 10-year career as an ICU nurse. I did all the type of ICUs that you can think of, and I've seen a lot of things. And it's very scary as when you live in a family or culture that praises certain types of workforces as like this is a respectable career where you can be successful. And for Filipinos, it's doctor, lawyer, engineer. Something in medicine. So I got as close as I could get in medicine as being a nurse, because the 10-year med school path was just not for me. School was not for me. I don't even know how I got through nursing school. But anywho, one day I had a terrible night at work, and the 1 hour I had to myself where it was quiet, I sat down and wrote on a piece of paper, this is how I'm getting out of nursing. And I wrote it all down. And I'm still in that process, and this has been a 3-year process. Whenever it's been a huge learning going through this path of building a business for yourself, is that I'm at this point in time where everything is super clear now. Like I know where I'm moving forward. And the past 3 years have taught me I need to slow down, like over and over and over and over. I get an idea, I want to act on it right away. And then when I try to act on it, universe slows me down more. I don't know how many times I really felt like last year was the year I was going to really start and like market myself and all this stuff. And I would get sick, I would be traveling, scheduling would happen, and people passed away last year, and I was just like, what the heck? But it was really funny, and I had to learn myself from like an energetic space too. Like I really feel like choosing to go on this path, like universe, like, oh, you're ready to do this, and presents me with a path, a journey of scenarios that would evolve me into the person that was finally ready to do this thing. And that's what I feel like going into 2024 is like, I feel so energetically clear. And I say that because 3 years ago, I wouldn't even know what those words meant. Energetically clear. What is energy? What do people even mean by energy? And when I identified as a person, okay, I remember having thoughts when I was a younger person saying, I have this body, I'm in this thing, nobody taught me how to use it, nobody taught me how to connect. Like, why does it seem like everybody else knows what they're doing with it? And then I realized the reality. Nobody know what the fuck. No, nobody got a
manual.
a manual. Yeah, thank you. A manual on this body, this meat suit that we live in until the day we die. And I think that's what brought me to that's what brought me to embodiment coaching. I call myself a life coach because not even people know what life coaching is, let alone an embodiment coach. So I say life coaching, but I'm really an embodiment coach. And during my journey, I'm a Sagittarius. I'm very honest and blunt. I've been very honest about the traumas that happened in my life thus far. Like, I've never been really to therapy. I've been twice. and I've been an open book for my whole life to anybody who would listen to me. So I basically naturally talk therapy my whole life up until this point. And I got to this part in my journey over the past 3 years where I was like, well, I know, thank you, Mark Groves, for helping me understand why I'm the common denominator and why I do the things that I do. But they're like, you can only know things so far, and until the point you're like, well, why am I still doing the same things over and over again? And that's where I come in for people. Like, I'm a really great tool for people who have been to a lot of therapy, and I'm not even going to limit those folks who do want to work with me, because I do recognize therapy is not accessible, but people also have the ability to know why, like, have the self-awareness without a therapist, because that has been my reality. So I got to a point where I was like, well, I feel like there's something I can do with this body. Like, they don't say mind, body, soul for no reason. They're all pieces to a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went through the logical aspect, and then I went to the spiritual aspect, and then I was like, well, all I have left that I haven't explored or journeyed through is the body. And I learned a lot. Let's just say I learned a lot when it comes to the nervous system and our mental health, our neural programming. Like, we are the way we are because, examples, as children, we have this survival dynamic with our parents, and we depend on them for our survival. So that's why a lot of us become people pleasers.
Yeah.
We had to make our parents happy, whatever that dynamic was. Maybe not, that wasn't the dynamic, but as an example. So a lot of us become people pleasers. That wasn't my dynamic growing up. I experienced like severe neglect when I was a young child. Like, I call, like, in the 80s, this is why I have strong feelings about marketing now. Like, I want to be an ethical marketer. That's my goal moving forward, is ethical marketing. I don't want to market towards people's nervous systems and the pressure. So, and I remember my dad being like so glued to the TV, and we just like played with ourselves. Like, that sounded wrong. Played with alone or with my siblings. and that was funny. And my dad didn't connect with us like on a deeper, not that I don't even think he probably had the capacity to do so anyways. And I'm at this point in my life where I've forgiven my dad a lot for a lot of things. And my dad, oh, you could have me on for another episode just on my father wound. It's so good. It's such a good story. But yeah, and so we are presented with scenarios where our child selves are like, oh, I have to do this for survival. And we take those things with us until adulthood, because and the traumas that we haven't given, like, with our body, we experienced trauma as children, and we weren't taught to give it a place to go. And that's okay. I realized recently now that I find it interesting that everything in the Middle East is happening right now, because it's taken me to a place where I'm understanding the history of where we're coming from now, from a nervous system aspect. Mm-hmm. And I'm finding it very valuable, because I'm understanding now that my parents were children of people who suffered through World War II. Mm-hmm. And if you understand that, if you like Google on epigenetics or neuroplasticity, that trauma is stored in our bodies and in our DNA. And then like we even have a genetic predisposition for behavior, let alone being nurtured or modeled or programmed into these behaviors too. So it's both. If you're thinking nature versus nurture, it's actually both. So that being said, we take those things into adulthood, and now we're like wondering, why are we anxious? Why are we always scared? Why are we always like X, Y, and Z, depressed, all these things? Because we never gave a place for these traumas or emotions to go outside of us. Like our bodies can handle a lot of things. It can handle immense amounts of trauma. That sounds very scary, but it can. But you have to give that energy a place to go, else it lives in you and manifests as anxiety, depression, etc., fear, all the things. So in my work as an embodiment coach is that I do alternative modalities like breath work, and I love hypnosis because it gets you into the subconscious and gets you really underneath all that programming that you receive from this world, your culture, your family members, all that inner dialogue, and you're in the subconscious under all that. Like, so, okay, I want to explain quantum hypnosis real quick, because people have different definitions for it, and this is how I explain it. I think a lot of people will understand it from this point of view too. I'm that kind of person. I need to hear different things explained different ways for it to really sink in.
Totally.
So quantum for me, and I've had this conversation with my partner, who is, by the way, very logical, very sciencey, doesn't understand esoteric anything, spirituality. So it's very fun to invite the science into spirituality, because there is science backing in all of this, and even into intuition, there's like science behind it. And when I talk to him about it, he's like, and I've had people say, like, when you call it quantum, like, it just really loses me. And I try to explain it from a spiritual space, but not everybody got the memo or the knowledge behind that to understand it from that explanation. So when I talk to my boyfriend about it, and he's into sci-fi and all that stuff, he's like, well, quantum means the basis, the basics, the root, or like the basic
Like
components of things.
Yeah.
Yes, like a molecule. And I was like, holy shit, that's what you're doing in the subconscious. It's like going back to the basic, like theta brainwave state, out of all of that clutter in our conscious minds. We're going to the basic basis of our minds. I don't want to say basic, like the basis. I don't even know what word to use for it. Like basis doesn't even feel like a good word either.
The simplest part.
Simplest.
Maybe.
Yeah, simplest part. I don't even know that I like the word simple though, because it's not even simple. But you know what's interesting in quantum hypnosis? I find that the answers are always simple in there. You notice that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You could say our rawest part, our purest part.
Okay. I think I like raw. I think I like pure. Like that's another thing that I love about my work too, is that I'm very much like client focused. I'm not a coach that will tell you what to do or what it is or what your answer is. I'm here to help you like find that answer, that action that most resonates with you. And and it really teaches intuition and tuning in the bodies. People don't even understand what resonance means.
Yeah.
Like if you really sat down and be present with that feeling of resonance, what does resonance feel like to you? And that's different for everybody. So it's very much like I'm a guide, and I'm like, you know that quote, teach a man to fish?
Yeah.
Like I'm very much that energy. Like I'm gonna give you tools and how to navigate your life, and like moving forward, like after our relationship together, you would have been able to better navigate your path moving forward. And maybe, hopefully, we've gotten past like some things that have been in your way that is keeping you away from your goals, whatever your goals are. And like the theme in my business right now that's been coming up for me a lot, because this is like been a huge topic for me moving into this year, is joy and the inner child and creativity. And I feel like that's like big energy coming into this year. So anyways, did I even answer the question? Like I said a lot just now.
Quantum hypnosis and how you were able to describe it. So the quantum part was like our raw, pure part.
Yes. Yeah, you get out of all the ego mind.
Yeah.
And then you get to the answers, the real answers of whatever your questions are. So you're being hypnotized in your mind into the quantum state, and you're going to access answers that only you are looking for. Like, I know a lot of people have fears regarding like, oh, what am I going to find there? Everybody's scared of their subconscious mind for some reason. And I'm trying to understand where does that even come from? Does that come from media or whatever? It does come from the fear of the unknown. Everybody's scared of the
Yeah.
That's a very big fear for many people. And I think I find it lovely that we're having this conversation. And I find it very lovely that a lot of us who are opening podcasts from our group is showing what it does look like to help like ease those fears. I'm very much that kind of person who's like Monet says, honoring your nervous system. It's very important. Like, it's very important that instead of shitting on ourselves for the way we feel, this is actually a real feeling that you're having. For whatever reason in your journey up until this point, you have this fear that stops you from doing it. And that fear is there on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's something to notice and be honest with yourself about. And it is a clue to how you operate and how you can move forward into whatever dreams you're trying to achieve. Thank you for letting me like come on your podcast, because this is like, a lot of things are coming through. I was like, I'm trying to figure out like my marketing message, and it is very much like, let's engage in those dreams you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of like how my journey was, is like, well, my dream was never to be a nurse. I actually, honestly, if I'm quite honest, and I'm going to be honest with myself and everybody right now, I went into nursing out of survival. I was a single mom. That was my reality. And that just kind of goes me on another trail, like how we shame nurses for wanting to do it for the money. But that if you see it from that lens, you can understand why this nurse did it for the money. Yeah. I had a kid to feed.
Of course, you did whatever it took to get to wherever you needed to, for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think martyrdom is a part of our religious programming too. So, like, the energy of sacrifice feels really icky in my body. I don't think we should be sacrificed. I think everybody could be getting what they wanted out of this life for themselves from a place from the quantum, like their deepest, simplest desires. Like, what did they needed from this thing? Everybody could have that, and it manifests differently physically in our physical worlds. I feel like if everybody honored their soul in this lifetime, not even in this lifetime, but just in general, their human soul, everybody has their part in this oneness. We all came from the one source, right? If you believe in that. I think we would become all pieces to a puzzle that fits a bigger picture if we all honored what we wanted. There is enough for everybody, but you have to really understand and take the time to understand what it is you truly want and why do you want it.
Yeah.
What a pleasure it is to have Christian speaking on the podcast with her wonderful wisdom and her insightful ideas. And I love how she finds clues and pieces to the puzzle along her life's journey. So, stay tuned for next week. Keep your ears open for part 2 of our chat on the podcast. I have left some details in the show notes. Christian's Instagram, it is Crispy Nachos. You'll see it in the link in the Spotify show notes. If you're listening on another platform, you should be able to see it there as well. I've also included Dave Ramsey's link to his YouTube. It's all about money, and if you're looking for any financial help, Christian said that he was really helpful to her. Then Mark Groves, that Christian was also talking about, I've also left his link in the show notes. And Sahara Rose, her wonderful book of Discover Your Dharma. I haven't read it myself, but that's how Christian really got on her awakening journey, so it might be something you'd be interested in. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Feel free to get in touch. You know where I am. My details are also in the show notes. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful week. Take care.